Monster Blood for Breakfast. Chapter 21. I pressed myself against the cold tile wall. I held my breath. "What are you doing?" the girl repeated. "I'm just getting my backpack," another girl answered. "I left it in here after gym class." "Well, hurry, Caitlin. We've already missed half the swim meet." I didn't breathe until I heard the door close behind them. Then I let out a long whoosh of air. A close call. I placed the hairdryer back on its hook. My big idea was a total flop. I tightened the towels around my waist. I had to get help. I had to get home and think. I crept through the school quickly and hurried out the back door. The sun had fallen behind the trees. The air was cool and damp. Maybe, I thought, if I keep low behind hedges and bushes, maybe I can get home without being seen. 3 little star things to indicate a change in setting or time. Yes, I made it home. I crept up to the kitchen door and peered through the window. No sign of Mom. I pushed open the door and jumped inside. The kitchen was warm and smelled of chocolate. I was never so happy to be here. I checked out the living room and the den. No one here. I knew Livy was at her new friend Martha's house. Was Mom at the swim meet waiting for me to compete in my next event? I couldn't think about that now. I had to think about only one thing, finding an antidote to the monster blood, shrinking myself back to my good old 5'2". The house looked so small. I knew I wouldn't even fit at the kitchen table. I lumbered up to my room. My huge legs were still aching from my mad dash home. I shut my eyes before I stepped into my room. Please, please let the ivy plant be back to its normal size. No, it stretched along the ceiling, its big leaves shading the ceiling light. My bed cracked as I dropped onto it. One of the legs fell off. I sighed. I was too heavy for my own bed. Wait, another idea. Maybe Bradley could help me. I remembered what he had said when he first showed me the monster blood. The green plastic egg came inside a box. Did Bradley save the box? Maybe it had instructions on how to get small again. My cell phone sat next to my iPod docking station on the nightstand. I grabbed it up and flipped it open. I knew Bradley's cell number by heart. I jabbed at the keys. Jabbed. Poked. Oh no, my finger was too big. It hit 3 or 4 keys at once. I let out an angry shout and heaved the phone against the wall. I have to go next door and see him, I decided, but I can't go in these towels. I opened my closet. My eyes frantically raced over my clothes, all too small. Then I remembered my dad's big old raincoat. He found it at a thrift shop and wore it as a joke. He always said it was big enough for 2 people. Did Mom keep it? Was it still in the closet in the basement? The stairs creaked and cracked under my weight as I lumbered downstairs. I found the old raincoat in the basement closet. It stunk of mothballs, but I didn't care. I pulled it around me and tied the belt. The huge coat fit perfectly. I pulled my bulky body up the stairs. My feet were too big. My feet were so big they poked over the steps. "Bradley, I hope you're home," I muttered, "and I hope you kept that monster blood box." I pulled open the front door and let out a shriek. 2 men dressed in black. They cried out too when they saw me and backed off the stoop, gaping at me. You're 10 feet tall," one of them gasped. At first, I was startled to see them, frightened, but I quickly realized they could help me. They were just the help I needed. "Look at me," I cried. "I'm a giant freak. I admit it. I have what you've been looking for." They stared at me with their mouths open. They didn't say a word. "I have the monster blood," I boomed. "Look what it did to me. Do you know how to help me?" My big voice cracked. "Please help me," I cried. "I promise I'll give the monster blood back." They both narrowed their eyes at me. "Monster blood?" one of them said. "What on earth is monster blood?" Chapter 22. It was my turn to stare at them with my mouth hanging open. "Monster blood," I finally choked out. "You know, the stuff you wanted me to return." They exchanged glances. "We don't know anything about that," the man with the rings said. "We work for the company that makes the gas attack cans." "A bad batch was sent out," his partner said. "It's way too smelly. It can make people really sick." "Did you order it?" the first man asked. "We'll give you your money back." I let out a long sigh. These men were not going to help me at all. "You've got the wrong guy," I said, shaking my head sadly. "My neighbor ordered the gas attack. We already used it. It was disgusting, but we're okay." "Sorry we bothered you," Ringfinger said. They turned and hurried to their car. As he pulled open the door, he shouted back at me, "Good luck, kid. Ever think of playing basketball?" "Ha ha, very funny." I watched them drive away. Then I tightened the raincoat belt and ran across the front yard to Bradley's house. Ow! I let out a cry as my head bumped a low tree branch. Whoa, guess you have to duck a lot when you're 9 feet tall. I climbed the stoop and pounded on Bradley's front door. You've got to have that box, I muttered. You've got to have the instructions. Bradley pulled open the door. His eyes bulged in horror and he let out a terrified shriek. A giant, he wailed. Get away, now, I'm calling the police. No, I stammered. He slammed the door in my face. No, it's me! I pounded the front door again with both fists. The door cracked. I saw the hinges fly off and the door fell in with a thud. I didn't know my own strength. I heard a deafening siren. The burglar alarm. Bradley stood there trembling in the front hall, eyes still bulging. He started to back away. Bradley, it's me, I shouted over the blaring alarm siren. It's Matt. The monster blood did this to me. You've got to help me. He squinted up at me. Matt? He squeaked. Really? I thundered over to him. Where's the monster blood box? Bradley, do you still have the box? I might, he stammered. Up in my room. He turned and began running up the stairs. I tried to follow him up, but crash. My head bumped the ceiling. No way I could fit on the stairs. The burglar alarm continued to blare, rising and falling. I started up to the second floor. Do you have it? Can you find it? And then I heard other sirens from out on the street. The police. They must have responded to the burglar alarm. I froze in panic. Bradley, hurry, I screamed. I couldn't let the police see me like this. Crazy thoughts flew through my head. What if they thought I was a giant from outer space? What if they shot first and asked questions later? I had to get out of here. I spun away from the stairs and saw 2 police patrol cars pull to the curb in front of the house. Bradley, where are you? I screamed. Bradley? Chapter 23. 3 uniformed cops raced up the front walk. Ducking under the ceiling light, I took off to the back of Bradley's house. Police officers, a deep voice shouted from the busted front door. Did they see me? I heaved open the kitchen door and crept across the backyard toward my house. Halfway there, I heard footsteps. Heavy breathing. A shadow came up from behind mine in the grass. The police! No! I spun around to face them. Hey, Bradley, it's you! I cried. I've got the box, Bradley whispered. He held it up to me. A green box with monster blood in dripping red letters. Come on, hurry, I said. I ran to my kitchen door. I pulled it open and ducked my head to go inside. Huh? Wait, I froze in surprise. I didn't have to duck. I fit into the doorway. I grabbed the door and held on tight. Something was pulling me down. Something invisible, tightening, holding me down, pressing me, flattening me. My whole body ached. I let out groan after groan. I gasped when I realized I was shrinking. I watched my big hands grow smaller, like balloons losing their air. My arms pulled in, the floor seemed to rise up, but I knew I was sinking down, folding in, dropping. In seconds, I would be just a few inches taller than Bradley, still shrinking, sinking into the huge raincoat, disappearing. Disappearing? Yes, I was shrinking too fast, shrinking too far. In a few seconds, I'd be the size of a bug, and then gone. Help me, I screamed. I tried to pull myself upright, tried to stand tall, tried to stretch myself up, but I couldn't fight the wave pulling me down. I gripped the sides of the door. I tried to fight off the panic that swept over me. Tightening my throat kept me from taking a breath. Total mind-numbing panic. I watched Bradley appear to grow taller, and I knew I couldn't stop myself. In a few seconds, I would disappear forever. Chapter 24. The floor swooped up beneath me. The kitchen light suddenly seemed far away. I felt like a tiny mouse peering up at the ceiling. Do something, I screamed at Bradley. I can't stop shrinking. He gaped at me, eyes rolling wildly in his head. Read the monster blood box, I shouted. What does it say? Read it. Bradley's hands were shaking as he pulled the box to his face. He twirled it between his hands, searching for instructions. He dropped it. The box hit the floor. He bent to pick it up and stepped on it. Hurry, I pleaded. I could feel my bones pulling in, my skin tightening. Whoa, wait, I found something, Bradley said finally. He began reading from side of the box. We hope you enjoy this sample 12-hour version of Monster Blood. But for more exciting results, use this coupon for 20% off a new improved long-lasting Monster Blood. It's just a sample, I cried happily. Yes, yes, just a sample, and it's wearing off. I ran to the hallway mirror. I gaped at my reflection. Yes, I was back to my normal height. Excellent. I turned and slapped Bradley a high five. Then we bumped knuckles. I'm back, I cried. I hurried to the stairs. Let's check out my ivy plant, I said. I'll bet it's smaller too. Bradley followed me upstairs. I could still hear the alarm siren wailing next door. Whoa! Bradley stopped short in the doorway to my room and let out a cry. The ivy plant still climbed over the ceiling. It hadn't shrunk like me. It's like something in the jungle, Bradley cried. I guess monster blood works differently on plants, I said. I didn't care. I was back to normal. We returned to the kitchen and Mom came bursting in. Oh, thank goodness, you're both safe, she cried. There was a robbery next door. The robbers broke down the front door, but they didn't take anything. I know, I said. I went next door, Mom, and... To help Bradley? Mom cried. You risked your life to help Bradley? Matt, that's so wonderful of you. She wrapped me in a hug. Should I tell her the truth? Should I tell her what really happened? No way. She'd never believe it. That night in my room, I cut back the leaves on my ivy plant so I could get to my work table. I felt great. No, I felt better than great. I was back to normal. I'd set the world's record in the 500-meter freestyle, and now I wanted to win Mr. Scotto's science prize. I began fitting the sides of my birdhouse together. I already had the computer wiring ready to install. I knew I could build the winning project. No way Bradley could build one as good as mine. Chapter 25. The next morning, Mom drove me to school with my science project. I carried it carefully between my hands into the gym. Dozens of kids were already there. Long tables had been set up under one basketball net. The big room was quiet. Kids were busy setting up their projects. I carried the birdhouse down the first aisle, looking for a place to put it down. I stopped next to Sean Deere, a brainy girl in our class I liked a lot. She was attaching a water hose to the back of a tall plastic box. I had to ask, Sean, what is that? She didn't look up. She concentrated on the hose. It's a waterfall that flows up, she said. I'm trying to prove that gravity doesn't exist. Cool, I said. I moved down the table. Another kid was slipping batteries into a complicated metal contraption. It looked like an insect with a dozen eggs. It's a self-destruct machine, he told me. When I turn it on, it totally destroys itself. Awesome, I said. I still thought my birdhouse had a good chance of winning. It was simple and useful, and it really worked. I set it up at the end of the table and checked out the computer functions. When I showed it off to Mr. Scotto, I wanted everything to work without a glitch. A short while later, Mr. Scotto came down the aisle. He studied each project and made notes on a long clipboard. Since I was at the end of the table, he saw my birdhouse last. He was definitely impressed by the temperature control and the built-in rain guard. He grinned when I showed off the computerized seed feeder. Matt, you've taken Bradley's idea to a new level, he said. Great imagination, and the computer programming is brilliant. Thank you, I said. I could feel my heart start to race. I was excited. I have to give a few projects a second look, he whispered, and I'll need to see Bradley's birdhouse, but I think yours is the winner. He moved back up the aisle. I wanted to cheer and jump up and down in triumph, but I knew I had to wait for that. I gazed down the rows of tables. Whoa, wait, where was Bradley? I don't believe it, I muttered. Bradley hadn't even shown up. I guess he couldn't get his birdhouse to work, or maybe he realized he couldn't win with a stolen idea. I saw Mr. Scotto striding back down the road toward me. He had a big smile on his face, and he carried a silver trophy in his hands. I knew he was about to make the big announcement. Matt, he said, and then the gym doors burst open, and I saw a giant tree crash into the doorway. No, not a tree. It took me a few seconds to recognize my huge ivy plant. Its tendrils stretched out like tree branches. The huge leaves bobbed and shook like a ship's sails. Bradley dropped the pot to the floor. He stepped out from behind the monster plant. Ta-da! He sang. Mr. Scotto, I made this plant grow big by using ultraviolet laser light beams. What a liar. Oohs and ahs rose up and echoed off the high gym walls. Some kids started to clap. Kids were gaping at the giant plant and crying out in disbelief. The ivy plant bobbed in its pot like some kind of movie monster. Glowing under the lights, the fat leaves shimmered and shook. The tendrils curled and uncurled like long green snakes. Mr. Scotto handed Bradley the silver trophy. Our winner! Cheers rang out. I didn't cheer. I was too stunned to do anything. I had to grab the tabletop to keep from falling to the floor. I can't let Bradley get away with this, I decided. I can't let him win with this lie. He's a total cheater, and it isn't even his ivy plant. It's mine. I started over to Bradley and Mr. Scotto. I had to tell Mr. Scotto the truth about Bradley's project. I had to stop this. But halfway across the gym, I looked down and saw one of the long snake-like tendrils curl around Bradley's ankle. Bradley was waving the trophy over his head, enjoying the cheers and applause. He didn't seem to notice. Another long tendril stretched, and wrapped itself around Bradley's knee. Bradley held the trophy in front of him and posed for pictures. Cameras flashed. Bradley's grin grew wider. I watched a thick tendril wrap itself around Bradley's waist. Another one curled around his thigh. Bradley was in major trouble and had no idea. Would he ever escape? I decided I'd better hurry. I pushed past the crowd of newspaper photographers and shook Bradley's hand. Congratulations, I said. You deserve it, Bradley. You really do.